All right, so you've made it. You're on a film set. You are now working with the cast and the crew. You're in a movie, you're in a TV show, you're in a play, you're in something, right? So now we're gonna talk about the top 10 tips I have for you on how to occupy your time and just some good basic on-set etiquettes in case you are missing any, or in case this is the first time that you're on there and you're not sure exactly what to do. Now, before I start, it's important to show that you are aware of what is happening behind the scenes. You are respectful of everybody's time. You are respectful of every person that's a part of the production, and you know your role and your behavior and professionalism and the manners of being an actor on set. So here's a list of some tips and pointers for how you should be spending your time on set and how you should essentially behave on set. So number one, your attitude is the reason why they casted you in the first place. Crazy, right? I know. You're thinking to yourself, no, they casted me solely based on my talent because I did such a good job interpreting the character. Yes, that is true. You did a phenomenal job. But if they didn't think that you weren't going to be easy to work with, they probably wouldn't have casted you either. They probably sensed maybe if you were a diva or if you just seemed all over the place and you weren't professional, that you might have been too much of a headache to deal with. They were going to work with someone else. But no, they chose you, which means now you have to show them that you're working on set. This is really you in the audition room. You're going to be just as professional on set with them, and nothing has changed. Right? If you're working on set, chances are that in the audition and with the meetings with the production team, they really have decided that you're pleasant and you're going to be cooperative to work with. So you want to be there and you want to help them accomplish their goals. You don't want to distract them. When you arrive on set, you have to realize that there might be a lot of chaos going on in terms of the moving parts of a film production. There could be the director going out and doing this, the AD going out and doing this, the producers going left and right. Everything is a big mumbo jumbo mix and you're not quite sure what's happening. That's completely normal. That's kind of what a film set is like. But at the same time, you have to have the same attitude that you went into the audition room with. You have to be as easy going and as cooperative as possible. And that is extremely important because it's moments like these that are actually almost like a second audition. They're like a second chance, another chance to show this production team what you're capable of. This is especially the case with big movies, with big studios that you're gonna be working with over and over and over again. The Warner Brothers, the Paramounts, these studios, you wanna make sure you're on your best behavior, you're there to be as professional as possible, and you make the best experience for everybody involved as possible, because if they like you, there's a really good chance that they're going to remember you. Wow, that person was a great person to work with. I'm going to bring them back over and over and over again because I know what I'm expecting. I know what I'm going to get if I bring him on or bring her on. Tip number 2, you should never ever try to direct another actor. This is a huge no-no. This is a huge no-no with 2 exceptions. 2 exceptions. Number 1 is unless you are a superstar. Unless you're a Brad Pitt, right? You're someone who's so famous or who has had so much acting experience and directing experience to begin with that you are allowed to say a couple of things, and because you're so above everybody else per se, I hate using that word, but there is a certain social hierarchy on set. If you're so above everybody else, then you can drop a couple of comments here and there. I think that would be normal. I think everybody would appreciate that given your wisdom. But if you're not that, don't try to do it. It makes you look really foolish. It's a big red flag for everybody involved, especially the director and the producers. It's a scary thing. You don't want to do that. And the second exception is if the director wants 2 actors to play and kind of figure out or improv the scene themselves, right? And this is the only time where I don't even say it's directing. I call it cooperative rehearsing. I call it cooperative rehearsing because essentially what you're doing is you are rehearsing a scene. Both people are playing around. You're not trying to tell another actor what to do. You guys are just playing around. If it happens to be some suggestions here and there, right, that's great. But you can't really just direct someone. There's a certain way you can phrase it. Maybe try it like this. I think it could be funny if this is what we're going for in the scene, and then play it and figure it out. But it shouldn't ever be you directing them. A director's not going to like that. And also important to note, no matter how much cooperative rehearsing you are doing, that director is still going to have the final say in the project, period. You could do all of this, and he could say one thing and say, do it completely different from anything you've done, and you're gonna have to make that adjustment. So, in short, never try and take over a director's job. It is very unprofessional. It'll get you in a lot of trouble. If you have a disagreement with the director, you can speak up. I'm not saying that everything the director says becomes the law. Generally speaking, if you feel strongly about something, you can have an open conversation with the director. And a good director is going to listen to you. He's going to take it in. Of course, if you're working with like Martin Scorsese or someone huge, that's a lot trickier because they have way more experience than you do. So you really want to just maybe be humble in front of them and kind of work it out. Generally speaking though, if you feel like your experience is the same, that relationship is similar, you can help each other out. But if you're working with someone who has a lot more experience than you do, it's best to just listen and try and go for what they're going for, because they're going to really improve and enhance your performance. Tip number 3, you must respect yourself. If anyone is asking you to do anything that you didn't sign up for beforehand, that's a red flag. That should not be happening. You need to make sure that the production does not throw any surprises at you last minute. For example, asking you to suddenly do a nude scene, right? Totally inappropriate. Something you never agreed to, shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't have to do it. You need to talk to someone about that. Not cool. Another example is, say they want you to do a really serious stunt that they never mentioned. They want you to suddenly do something extreme. They're asking you if you're comfortable with it, stuff like that. You have to be honest with them. It's not worth it, because you have to realize that your body, your face, and your image is your entire business. That is your entire business. And you must make sure that your interest is in protecting your business, right? So you have to be comfortable with talking to them about it. If you have a stunt background and you're completely open to it, or you think it's fun or adventurous and you can handle it, that's a different story. Maybe there's some room for negotiation, you could talk it out, right? But in general, that's not cool. You should not be doing that. You have to make sure you're protecting yourself. Your safety comes first, your body, your image, all of these things, they come first. Tip number 4, never scream, never shout, or be rude to anyone, especially if you feel like they are lower than you or feel like they're less important than you in the social hierarchy. If you do that, there's a good chance you're gonna be labeled as a brat, a diva, a bunch of negative words, and it's just gonna come around and it's gonna bite you in the butt. It's guaranteed. It's not gonna be pretty. Don't be a diva. Don't be mean. Don't be rude to people. You're a coworker. You're really no less. You're really not higher than anyone on the social hierarchy. Like, you're just all here to make a film, to make a project, have fun. Everyone there is trying to make the best project possible. Work together. So important. Just work together. Be pleasant. Tip number 5. You have to always be ready. When you arrive on set, you're going to quickly notice, like the majority of the time, you're gonna have lots and lots of downtime. And that's just the nature of the business. It's gonna take 30, 40 minutes for them to set up a scene. That's just how it is. But when you are hired to be completely available for that entire day. Your schedule should be booked out the entire day. And that means that technically you should be working every second of the day, and you should be prepared for that if they ask you to do that. Now, luckily, as an actor, it's a real blessing, because chances are they will not need you all day. They might even have a stand-in for you. Someone specifically there just to stand in when the cameras aren't rolling for technical lighting purposes or blocking purposes, because that's how important and how highly valued you are as an actor. But when they need you, you should put production in a place where they are never waiting for you for an extended period of time. If they catch you at a bad time where you're using the bathroom, you have to do your business, that's fine. But you should never be a diva and have them waiting for you for too long, because every second that they're waiting for you, to them, is money that's disappearing because of you. Because that's what it's all about. It's time is money in the film industry. So it's important that you should be ready at a moment's notice and that you are prepared for the scene too. Making sure that you're ready to give a really, really good performance at a moment's notice. It's not just that you're ready to be on set and then you need some time to warm up, all of this stuff. No, you should be as ready as possible. Again, the idea is to be as pleasant and as professional as possible. And these are all things that you can do to make sure that you are as professional as possible. Tip number 6 is to have something to do. Now I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit and go back to what I just said. So I just mentioned, being ready at a moment's notice, being ready at all times. But just because you should be available at a moment's notice doesn't mean that you can't do anything else. In fact, you are probably gonna be so bored at times that you're gonna wish that you brought something else to do. Because the reality is, if you're not a star, if you're not the lead in a show, you're not going to be needed probably all day. There will be huge gaps in the production schedule where you're gonna just be kind of on standby. You're just waiting in the waiting room. So it's important to bring something to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't ready. Being ready and bringing something to do could be, reviewing your acting notes, or you brought a book to read, or maybe you even bring your laptop to get some work done that's outside of acting, right? The point is that there will be lots of times, especially when you're not the lead actor, where you will have most of the day to yourself on set. They might be only filming a couple scenes, you might only be in one, but they don't know when you're gonna be needed, so they call you in for the whole day. Great, they're gonna be paying you for the whole day. That's good news, but you should be ready and you should have something to do so that you're just not sitting around and being bored, because, and this brings me to another point for why you should keep yourself occupied, is that that's going to be beneficial for both you, but literally everybody else on the set. Because remember, everybody else on set has a job. They're there to do something. And the more that you could keep yourself focused and keep to yourself, the less likely that you're going to be going out and distracting other people who are working, and you're taking up their time and get them in trouble. Tip number 7. Never say anything that is not positive about somebody on set. Like, ever. Like, you should not do that, okay? Your goal is to be as likable as possible, and you want everyone to want to work with you again. And when you're talking about other people, gossiping, word travels really fast around the set. There's not a lot of people working on set. It's going to get around, and you don't want to do that. Don't make it political. Don't take sides. If other people are talking, don't weigh in on what you feel. The best thing to do is to maybe just take a back seat and to just make yourself neutral. You're there for one job. You're there to be a good actor, put on a good character that the project could rely on for performing, for getting them engaged in the entire project. Don't make it about yourself. Don't go out and distract yourself and say negative things to people or take sides and make it a negative experience. Tip number 8, understanding when to speak on set and when to wait. So when you're on a film set, there's like a million things happening at once with everybody who's involved, right? And it doesn't help that your best friend and your closest colleague, your closest ally, actually happens to be the director himself, right? That's the person you're gonna work closest with. But he is also tasked with literally everything else in the production. He's the busiest guy on set. His time is the most valuable. So you have to understand how busy he is, and you have to understand the urgency of your request or what that question is, and you have to understand that you have to find that balance of asking or waiting until he's not as busy, which could be challenging because he could be so busy that you end up not talking to him for an extended period of time. Just because you are the actor and your priorities to the story comes first doesn't necessarily mean that you can use that time and you can use that as an excuse to just get close and hang out with the director himself or herself, right? They're there for a job too, and their time is very, very valuable. It can be really tricky because he or she might have to deal with lighting, sound. Now suddenly the producer wants to talk to them. The stunt people want to talk to them. All of these different working parts, they all want the director's attention. They are all waiting on the director, and it's tricky because you need him or her just as much as everyone else. So it's important to kind of prioritize that and figure that out. Tip number 9, super simple tip, very, very overlooked. Be confident, especially if you're the lead actor. When you are the lead actor, there's many times where you kind of have to set the tone on set. You're going to be what people are going to be looking for in terms of the attitude and just the general vibe on set. Everyone working on set knows how important you are. I mean, after all, you are the star of the show if you are the lead, right? And it's important that you lead by example and you showcase that confidence to the production so that, everyone else will follow that and they'll be able to get a good sense of your leadership. And to do this, it's just quite simple, Get to know everybody on set and treat them as your equals. It's really not as hard as it is. Just get to know them, talk to them. They're a human being, you're a human being, you're there to connect. They're there to make you look good and to make the story be really good around you. So just treat them as equals, they're there to help. Also be assertive and professional. If you have concerns or questions, make sure you clarify and you ask them confidently. You don't want to not be confident and miss out on a chance to clarify something and cause confusion that might come back and bite you guys in the butt later on. So remember, as the actor, you deserve to be a star, right? But make sure you're not acting like a diva. Make sure you're acting like a star. You're acting like a pleasant experience, You don't want to be a diva. You don't want to be a brat. You don't want to be a negative person. You don't want to be a drama queen. Those are all things you want to avoid. And a lot of times it's tricky because people kind of get those two things mixed up. There's this connotation that, a star is somebody who can act like a diva, who can act a certain way. And I don't buy into it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think you got to set the tone. You got to set the example. And a lot of people are looking up to you as an example too. So you got to make sure that you're in it and that you're setting forth a good example for everybody. And finally, tip number 10. This is so simple. I shouldn't even be saying this, but I always love saving the basic ones for last because it's just a friendly reminder to never do it or to always keep this in mind. Don't be late. Being late is a sin. It's a sin in this industry. It's so bad. And, if it happens due to legit reasons, like real legit reasons outside of your control, that's fine. Pray that the production will understand. But in general, just don't be late. It makes you look super silly. It's embarrassing. Even if they don't show it, everyone's thinking about it. Everyone's keeping track. It's not good. And with all of these tips said, that comes to the conclusion of our entire acting series. I hope you have found this informational and educational. I know that we covered a lot of bases and we went over a huge variety of things that encompasses this career of acting. And I might not have jumped into very specific things, but that's because there's just so much to cover and most of the learning at the end of the day is gonna come down to you and the extracurricular time that you put into it. I basically condensed all of this into a few hours, but in reality, everything that I'm sharing with you is just the stuff that stands out to me the most. A lot of my knowledge, I could literally talk about this for days. I could do 20, 30 hours on this easily because that's roughly the time of just me spending learning about all of these, like just educationally reading about all of these. Of course, reviewing it, putting it into practice, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours. But I've spent a lot of hours learning, reading the technique of acting, the set etiquettes, comedy, all of these specificities and career moves. And I'm just kind of sharing all of this with you in one general guideline. So it's a lot, but again, remember, throughout the journey, you're gonna learn and you're gonna grow a lot. And it's important to realize that this is just one step. This is step number one, and many steps will follow once you start taking these simple steps, because it's kind of like a domino effect. You knock one over and more are gonna fall over, more things are gonna fall in front of you. You're gonna learn and grow even more and more, the more experience that you have. I hope you've enjoyed this, and let me know if you have any questions. You can contact me on Instagram at TheSamlyTV. That's at TheSamlyTV. I'm open to answering any further questions you might have. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this class, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.